we decided that TikTok was a national security threat.
It's a national security threat.
Poses a national security threat.
It's not censorship, it's national security.
It poses a threat to national security.
The priority here, though, is national security.
National security.
National security. National security.
National security.
National security.
National security.
National security.
Supreme Court has ruled to uphold the ban, uphold the law, right? So there was a big challenge that whether this was unconstitutional, whether it violated free speech. Right now, the Supreme Court has decided that this law can stand. And of course, now it's going to be a question of what goes on once the president-elect takes office.
So did anyone actually think that TikTok was shutting down? I didn't. It's way too popular to shut down at this moment. And if you can control the algorithm, it could be useful to certain people. So I'll get into that. But as you can see right here, as of this recording, Sunday, January 19th, one day before President Trump is sworn in as the 47th president of the United States, TikTok is back online. As you can see here on an X post from TikTok Policies page, statement from TikTok: in agreement with our service providers, TikTok is in the process of restoring service. We thank President Trump for providing the necessary clarity and assurance that our service providers that they will face no penalties, providing TikTok to over 170 million Americans and allowing over 7 million small businesses to thrive. It's a strong stand for the First Amendment and against arbitrary censorship. We will work with President Trump on a long-term solution that keeps TikTok in the United States. Now, as you saw in the very, very beginning, there are some Congress people who wanted TikTok to go away. And usually when it comes to Democrat and Republicans, and I mentioned this in my previous video, if you haven't watched it, please take time to watch it. They rarely agree on something, unless it's, let's say, war, for example. That's when they come together and say, okay, let's go, because of course the military industrial complex, people getting money, news, you know, the hype, the hoopla of war, all that. We all know this already. But for them to come together and agree to shut down TikTok, again, it's against the First Amendment because we have freedom of speech. And yes, I know people are saying, well, Chinese Communist Party, they may be influencing the Americans with the algorithm, what they put out there, stuff like that. That's their argument. That's what people say. However, I just wanted to point out Ian Carroll's post on X, which kind of explains what I explained in my previous video as to the real reason why this whole TikTok fiasco was going on in the first place. Now, I follow both people, you know, Ian Carroll and Wokeness on X, and you know, and Wokeness is pretty good, but Ian Carroll gets into the nitty gritty, you know, what's really going on behind the scenes, and goes into great detail, especially on Instagram. But here, and Wokeness says, to the TikTok refugees flocking to X, those genders pushed by China algorithms were bullshit. There are only two. Yeah, of course we know that. But then again, and Wokeness, as much as I like him and what he posts, he's not really seeing the full picture here. That's just surface level, quote unquote, conservative ink talking points. What Ian Carroll highlights here is what I believe is the true reason, which he says, to every conservative who has no idea what they're talking about, TikTok has been controlled by Oracle since Project Texas. Its algorithm is overseen by Larry Ellison, one of the CIA's most ardent scientists. It has nothing to do with China, and every actual TikTok creator knows it. Now, what he's alluding to here is what I mentioned in my previous video as to why TikTok was even talked about in Congress of being banned. And again, it has to do with our quote unquote greatest ally across the pond.
But I also want to point out that we have a major generational problem. All the polling I've seen, ADL's polling, ICC's polling, independent polling, suggests this is not a left-right gap, folks. The issue in the United States of support for Israel is not left and right. It is young and old. And so we really have a TikTok problem, a Gen Z problem, that our community needs to put the same brains that gave us Tagli, the same brains that gave us all these other amazing innovations, need to put our energy toward this, like fast. Because again, like we've been chasing this left-right divide, it's the wrong game. The real game is the next generation.
The Israeli influence, the Jewish lobby, cannot control the narrative anymore. They've lost control of the narrative from the mainstream media. We're in an information age. Now, that person, Jonathan Greenblatt, he's the CEO of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which is really a defamation league. I mean, for some reason, they have the audacity to define what racism is. They can skew the numbers and claim that anti-Semitism is on the rise to 900%.
The level of hatred directed at people who support the state of Israel is through the roof. I mean, look at these numbers. Imagine if we're another group of people, if it were black students or LGBTQ students who'd been targeted, and the increases had gone up 900%.
1,000%, 1,500%, whatever helps with their narrative to get sympathy from the American people.
We need to talk about TikTok. TikTok, if you will, it is the 24/7 news channel of so many of our young people, and it's like Al Jazeera on steroids, amplifying and intensifying the anti-Semitism and the anti-Zionism with no repercussions.
And they're not alone. They have AIPAC.
When I come to AIPAC, I am with friends.
Now, as you can see here, Miriam Elderson, who is the widow of Sheldon Elderson, who was a huge donor to Trump's previous campaign, gave President Trump $100 million during his campaign. Now, that doesn't go without favors, obviously. And I think one of those favors had to do with TikTok. Now, I don't think she's going to get everything she wants during these 4 years, because I think Trump is waking up a little bit to what our so-called greatest ally is up to. I mean, if you haven't seen it, check out Truth Social. There's certain posts he posted recently, and he pretty much gives a smackdown to Bibi Netanyahu. But I do believe that Mary Elderson will influence Trump into fixing the algorithm of TikTok. As I explained to you earlier, Jonathan Greenblatt does not like TikTok. He thinks there's a generational problem with Gen Z and the message that Gen Z is getting from TikTok. And of course, a lot of the data that TikTok has is housed in Texas by Oracle and its CEO, Larry Ellison, who, according to Ian Carroll, is a huge Zionist. Now, of course, because of those things, I believe, and this is just my opinion, I have no proof of this, we'll have to see as time progresses, but I believe that you will see an algorithmic change in TikTok where when you used to see criticisms towards our so-called quote-unquote greatest ally, those will suddenly disappear, be suppressed, shadow banned, or whatever you want to call it. You won't see as much, or if any at all, anymore. As Jonathan Greenblatt explained, they're having a hard time convincing the younger generation. And even if they're able to accomplish this, mind you, we're in an information age. So if TikTok is suppressing information, there's plenty of other locations to get that information about what's going on and how our greatest ally is treating the United States. I mean, this is America. We're not Israel's vassal. But that's a whole nother video. I believe the reason TikTok is back online is because TikTok agreed to change the algorithm. That's what I believe. I don't know for sure. I have no evidence of that. Again, time will tell, but that is my speculation. You guys can talk about it in the comments below. But anyway, what do y'all think? Do you think that TikTok will be the same as it was before it was shut down briefly? Or do you think there will be an algorithmic change that we'll see in time? Do you like TikTok? Do you use TikTok? Do you think it's beneficial for our society as a whole in the US? Or do you think it's a detriment? I mean, you guys do know that the algorithm is different in the US than it is in China. So we will see how it affects the youth in the coming years. But yeah, I, for one, never used TikTok. I will not miss it if it were to go away. And if it's back now, it doesn't affect me at all. I could care less. But that's me. What say you? Leave a comment below. If you haven't already, please subscribe and hit that notification bell to get notified of future videos. And until the next one, take care.